This mini lesson looks at the early stages of the writing process, namely invention and planning. Like the next video in this series, it offers tips and practical strategies to help you write more effectively. For a broad overview of the process, be sure to watch the Writing Process Part 1. Link is in the description. As you experiment with different approaches, keep in mind that there is no one correct way to write. Don't worry if you've seen different versions of this process or other names for these stages. It's not an exact formula, and there are many means to an effective end. The important thing is that you write in a way that makes sense for you, your audience, and the particulars of each writing task. We'll start at the beginning, which is, for many writers, the hardest part. Invention and planning are often grouped together as pre-writing, since these activities tend to precede drafting and often happen at the same time. It's essential to approach pre-writing in a proactive and systematic way, as this can help you avoid getting stuck or blocked early in your writing process. As anyone who's tried to write anything knows, not writing is considerably easier than writing. Would-be writers have a way of doing almost anything instead of working on a writing task. Some of you may even be procrastinating by watching this video. So, how do we move from not writing to writing? That brings us to invention, the process of developing and connecting ideas. Invention can be a complex, messy, and highly personal undertaking, but it's important to be proactive. Here are a couple guiding principles to keep in mind. First, write while you read. Reading isn't just a passive act of absorbing information, it's an opportunity for invention. Think of yourself less like a sponge soaking up facts and more like an active participant in a conversation with the text. Take lots of notes. If you have questions, thoughts, or related ideas, write them down. Good writers understand that reading and research can be the impetus for their own ideas. Second, and this is especially important, don't passively wait for ideas or put off writing because you aren't inspired. Invention is the result of deliberate effort. It's easy to look at a great piece of writing and assume that real writers are simply compelled to write, that brilliant ideas and sentences just spontaneously emanate from their brains and fingertips. But this isn't usually the case. You may occasionally have a light bulb moment, but writing is a process that rarely happens all at once. So don't count on inspiration to suddenly strike. Ideas won't always come to you. Sometimes you have to go find them. So, how does that work? Let's look at a few useful idea-generating strategies. First, and perhaps most effective, is free writing. With this strategy, you use writing itself as a technique for developing ideas. Start with a blank page, give yourself a time limit, usually 5 or 10 minutes, and write continuously, as fast as you can. Don't worry yet about mechanics, correctness, structure, or even audience. The goal is not to create a polished piece of writing. Just try to write as much as possible in a short amount of time. Free writing was popularized by teacher-scholar Peter Elbow in the 1970s. Here's how Elbow describes the process. Never stop to look back, to cross something out, or to think about what you're doing. Just put down whatever is in your mind. The key here is to keep going. Don't edit or worry about what others might think. Since the only reader for this work is you can write whatever you want, however you want. The idea is to treat writing as an exploratory device and a vehicle for thinking. This is also called writing to learn. When you write to learn, you use writing to learn what you want to say. Many professional and famous writers utilize this approach, including the eminently quotable Joan Didion, who once said, "I don't know what I think until I write it down." So writing isn't just what we end up with. It can be an invaluable tool for discovering what we think. In this sense, writing to learn is the essence of free writing. Remember, this is still only a brainstorming strategy. At this stage, your writing need not be perfect or even very good, but it gives you something to work with besides a blank page. To paraphrase Anne Lamott, a lot of great writing begins as shitty writing. Of course, free writing is but one of many strategies for invention. The same exploratory mindset can be adapted to your strengths and applied to other idea-generating techniques. If free writing feels a little too free and open-ended, you may prefer something a little more straightforward, like composing a list. Listing is basically a condensed version of free writing. You can once again set a time limit, but just stick with words and phrases and list them in a vertical format instead of writing complete sentences. You can use this technique to come up with a topic or build your list around a particular topic. Free writing and listing are great, but for some writers, words on paper aren't enough. They want to see their ideas represented through pictures, images, or graphic representations. If this sounds like you, consider a more visual approach to invention. Some writers find it helpful to sketch images to represent ideas and concepts. Writers of narrative fiction, focused on characters and storytelling, often use flowcharts or storyboards to come up with ideas. A common visual invention technique for academic and professional writing is concept mapping, which is like listing with a visual and spatial component. You would still generate ideas as words and short phrases, but you can color code related points and organize them into different areas on the page. All of the approaches discussed so far can be done on a computer or with a tangible pen and paper. But if you're more of a talker or someone who just wants to work things out aloud, there are also auditory options for invention. One strategy is simply to talk to others. Discuss your ideas, or lack thereof, with friends, your instructor, or a writing tutor. Sometimes we just need to get out of our own heads, and someone else's perspective can really help. You could also try writing with your voice. Simply use voice-to-text to record and talk aloud to your phone or computer. Consider this method an auditory version of free writing. Remember, you're just coming up with ideas, so don't worry too much about pronunciation or getting a perfect transcription. Another advantage of this approach is that you can move around and walk while you talk. For some of us, physical movement can help get the creative juices flowing. Ultimately, these are only a few of the myriad ways to brainstorm ideas. Try not to get discouraged if you can't produce workable ideas right away. Experiment with different techniques, and don't hesitate to try something new if your go-to methods aren't working. And bear in mind that invention may happen at any time. It's technically the first step, but ideas often emerge later, and you can return to these techniques at any point in the writing process. Moving on, let's take a closer look at the other part of pre-writing, planning. We've all run into a writing project that inspires dread or anxiety. A looming assignment can feel daunting, but it becomes more manageable when you plan and approach your process in a relatively systematic way. Again, there are a few key principles to consider. First, start right away and give yourself lots of time. The writing process begins as soon as you receive an assignment. As we've noted, effective writing doesn't just happen. Good writers spend lots of time in the pre-writing stages. So make plans, don't procrastinate, and begin your process as soon as possible. Secondly, divide your work into a series of smaller tasks. Big projects are always more manageable when you break them down. Try to focus less on the final product and more on the steps it takes to get there. Organizing your plans around smaller activities takes some of the scary vagueness out of the process. It gives you a starting point and concrete next steps, which can help you avoid writer's block or procrastination. Thirdly, tailor your plans to your needs and the context of the writing task. For example, you may be wondering, should my plans include an outline? That depends on a few factors. Consider the nature of the project. Different tasks call for different levels of planning. An intensive research project will require more preparation, possibly including pages of detailed notes and an outline. But a short list may be enough for smaller assignments. It also depends on audience. You can write an effective essay without an outline or even an explicit thesis statement, but you may need both, depending on who you're writing for. And of course, an outline is also a personal preference. Some people prefer to have that big picture structure before they start writing, but others are more comfortable working inductively, letting their ideas evolve through writing-to-learn activities like free writing. Take these things into account when making your plans. Above all, be flexible. Plans evolve. Remember that any outline is just a working structure. This means that it's adaptable and subject to change. So don't be afraid to revise your plans, your structure, or even your broader thesis. Sometimes, our writing takes us places we didn't expect to go. However you choose to construct your plans, don't overlook this step. The more effort we put into planning, the easier the drafting process tends to be. That concludes part 2 of our 3-part video series. To learn more about the remaining steps in the writing process, be sure to watch part 3. And for a general overview of the process, check out part 1. Links for both videos are in the description below. Thanks for watching.